Hey, podcast listeners, Ria Wong with you once again with nonprofit. Sorry. Hey, podcast listeners, Ria Wong with you once again with Nonprofit Lowdown. Today, my guest is my friend Kishshana Palmer. You know her, you love her. She's been on the pod before. She is a author. Can I say author?
Yeah.
Okay. Kishshana Palmer, she is a leader. She is an author. She is a speaker. She is, dare I say, an influencer? Because I think you're sort of the Beyoncé of our nonprofit world.
Watch your face.
She is a trainer on all the things. Kishshana, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Oh my gosh, Ria. I was thinking about this morning. I remember when you were at your last full-time organization, that you were so gracious to have me come and support you and your team. And I remember when I was on the phone with you and you were like, I'm about to go. I'm like, what? And you're like, I'm gonna go figure this out. I need to go explore. I need to go figure some stuff out. Like, this is not it for me. And I remember thinking like, darn, not that it was brave, but like, I was excited. First of all, it was brave. Because, you could be in a prison that's very fancy. A lot of people.
Right. They call them the golden handcuffs, right?
The golden handcuffs, if you will. But like the idea that you would step out at a time where there wasn't really, air quotes, like a reason to step out.
Right.
Executive director jobs are plentiful. People always wanted really good fundraisers. And you were like, no, I'm gonna go try something else real quick and figure this out. And I just remember that I was thinking that this morning, like, darn, like what an example to set for your listeners, that when no one was looking, right? Like, you were just like, I'm gonna bet on myself.
Oh, that's so kind of you to say. Well, I right back at you. I think you were really one of the people I looked to, being like, yeah, I could do this. Like Kishshana's out here doing it. I can do it. So but I think you've been such a role model to so many folks out here, particularly for women of color who I think are very good at talking themselves out of things. I'm very good at thinking that they can't do it or it's not for them. And, to see folks like you out here being like, oh, you can do it was really, it's so powerful.
I love it. I appreciate that.
All right, friend, let's jump into it because I know we're all excited to talk about this. Oh, my goodness. We were just talking about being in our mid 40s, even though to look at us, you'd be like, what are you saying? You're clearly in your 20s, but we are both in our mid 40s. We got birthdays coming up.
You do?
And I mean, the vibe I'm getting around the sector is everyone is just tired, friend, just tired. And, one of the things I think about is this next generation, like as these boomers are retiring and our generation, Gen X, is kind of stepping into the lead. I also see so many people stepping out of leadership because it's so hard. So I guess as an entry point, like, what are you seeing?
So to me, like, one of the things that I was sort of leading into this over the last couple of years, but one of the things that I'm seeing most consistently is that folks are not just tired, they're tired to the point of like paralysis. They're tired to the point of, dare I say, apathy. There's so much coming at us, so much information, so much input that's just happening like in the world, and then in our communities, that in our neighborhoods, in our families. Then we got to deal with this mess at work. Folk are over it. And because this feels like an unprecedented time, this is not like when we were making the turn to the Industrial Revolution, or we're making the turn into the Civil Rights Movement, or we're making the turn into the women's feminist movement. Like, there were some turns that we were making where folks got like a renewed wind. We are winded. And there are two things that I think many of the leaders that I see, and I was actually looking at some trends that I was talking about this a little bit earlier this year, but even going into this summer that I'm seeing, folks want two things, Ria. They want comfort and they want to escape. Now, if you think about that, so period paragraph, I grew up latchkey kid. Two of my favorite foods to eat, and still to this day, were Chef Boyardee ravioli, y'all don't judge me, and ramen noodles. Specifically Ichiban. There's a particular brand that he got in New York that I love, and I don't eat any other brand. So I love ramen to this day. I saw an ad for not one, not two, but three specialty brands of ramen that are launching subscriptions for folks to be able to dig in. Do you think that I let that ad pass me by, or did I jump on it? I jumped on it because what I just tell you, ramen is a comfort food for me.
Right.
So specialty companies, desserts and ice creams and salty snacks, if you look carefully, you'll see that there's an uptick in those sort of like niche products.
Hmm.
You'll also see there's a huge uptick, despite the fact that these airlines are charging an arm, a leg, and two baby toes, in folks being on the road. They're catching flights, even if they have feelings, because they want out.
Yeah.
So we are yearning for to be comforted, right? And so
Hmm.
leaning towards things that bring us comfort. And we are yearning for escape. And so, how do organizational leaders create an environment where their team members feel both comfortable, right? There's a comfort, whether it's in job security, whether it's in understanding and loving their role, whether it is in the mission is growing, whatever, and escape. That work is a place that they actually don't want to escape from, but it's a place to go to. So that's what I'm seeing.
Yeah. It's so interesting as you're talking about this. Are you familiar with Esther Perel's work?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Obsessed. And if I ever meet her, I'm just telling you, I'm gonna give her the biggest hug in the world.
Kishshana, I met her and I have a picture with her. I was such a fangirl. I'll send it to
I'm
you.
a
Yeah,
fangirl. That's fangirl.
I know.
Fangirl.
I was like, oh my God, it's Esther Perel. Anyway,
Love
but
her.
yeah, it reminds me of, for those of you who don't know Esther Perel, check her out. But similarly, in marriages, we need comfort and we also need mystery, right? It's this
Yes.
tension of these two things. Before we get into the work piece, you said something before we started rolling that I thought was really interesting around us being the sandwich generation, right? So, I don't have kids, but I have lots of friends who have kids. So they're in the process of taking care of raising kids and also trying to take care of aging parents and kind of, you have needs on both sides of your family and you get
Mhm.
squeezed out, right? And you're taking care of your organization and you're maybe taking care of, maybe you're the breadwinner, whatever it may be. And it leaves such little room for us as I'm going to be heteronormative here,
Yep. Yep.
but like women, I think tend to take on the bulk of the emotional labor at
Yep.
home, the second shift. So
Yep.
I don't know, man. It's dire out here.
It's dire. And I think that the expectation that we are in the social sector, that means that we need to continue to be sacrificial lambs is BS, right? We are employed. And I don't care if you are a faith leader, because I talk about those with my friends who are in the faith sector in terms of whether faith leaders should be completely of service, whether they should make money or not, like that kind of whole dialogue. It's still a business. Lights got to be on, things got to get paid, the mortgage got to get burned, people have to buy. We are in the social sector because we chose, some of us just fell into it, to be a part of a system that is supposed to repair, to tighten, to fill in the fissures and the cracks of our social safety net. That's hard damn work. Okay. That's like the people who put the steel poles in the ocean, who build the bridges. We never hear about those folks. We never talk about the danger. We just marvel at the product and the finished work. And so people just want the diseases to be cured, and they want the babies to not starve, and they want the dogs to be rescued, and they want the trees to be conserved, and they want the babies to get education. We just keep going on and on. But what happens to the people who are responsible for ensuring that we create the environment for that to be so? And I think that if you're not thinking about your home in that perspective, then it's very hard to translate that, to me, to work.
Yeah. So let's dig into this because I think there are a couple different angles here I want to talk about, Kashana, and I'm really interested, and I know you are, around the idea of personal wellness, right? Because if we are not well ourselves, how can we be well for our community, for our families, for our work,
Yep.
etc. And I think, and again, I'll speak for myself. Data point of one, it felt in the sector that it really valorized like sacrifice. Like if I talk about this a lot, like suffering is noble. If I'm working 100 hours a week and I don't pee, like I am EDing so hard. And it took me a
Ooh,
while to realize that there were no gold medals given for suffering. Because if there were, I would definitely have been up on the on the
baby, we've been up on the front, dancing on top
right.
of the
I
cars,
was like,
like
I get the gold
suffering.
medal for
Woo!
suffering.
Yep, yep.
And I just think so many of the folks that we have in our sector subscribe to
Mhm.
this notion, and yet there's no model for what could be otherwise.
Absolutely none. And there's sort of like this, like, tee folks are like, oh, that works for you.
Right.
You know, like
Yeah. Do
there's
as I
not
say,
like
not as I do, right? Like, no,
correct.
no, no.
Or
You
like
should definitely not check email after 7 p.m. I'm going to,
you
but
should
you
definitely right. You're like, I'm going to, but you, on the other hand, should not. And so that to me is something that I've been seeing, like this idea that we can lean into taking better care of ourselves and not feeling like we are beating ourselves up because we're not doing what social media tells us we should be doing. You
Mhm,
know, when people think about personal wealth, personal wellness, oftentimes the first thing we think about is exercise and diet.
mhm,
But I actually have a different perspective. Not that that doesn't count, but I believe in what I call my 5-star wellness.
mm,
And that is different for every person, but it has the same 5 things. So, in order to think about what makes your personal 5-star wellness plan, you got to think about what makes up your physical wellness. And the questions you got to ask yourself are, how am I moving? How am I taking care of this vessel? How am I making sure that I have the energy to do the things that I want to be able to do? So that might mean movement, and that might mean diet, and it might mean some other things too, right? It might mean vitamins, whatever. And then we think about our mental wellness and well being. How am I taking care of my mind? What am I putting into it?
mm.
What am I listening to, absorbing? What am I saying to myself? Am I getting support to navigate where I am in this season? What does that look like? And then for those,
Wait,
go ahead, go
I
ahead.
I was just gonna say too that, like, that really resonates with me, particularly now because y'all know we're out here being faced with all kinds of election craziness right now, and doom scrolling is not the jam, y'all, and it's really hard to stop yourself, but, like, please put down the phone, stop doom
Jonathan.
scrolling. I mean, I got to a point where I was, like, checking the New York Times obsessively, like, every 5 minutes, and it just really wasn't working for my mental health.
No, so what I did for that, Ria, is I put all of my feeds to summary. So I get a
Mm,
morning summary, I get an midday summary, and an evening summary. That's it.
yeah.
I took everything off my desktop. I took everything. I am controlling the way in which I receive information and what shows up in my feed. So if you took my phone from me and were just being nosy, you would see fashion, of course. You would see home repair and DIY projects. You would see puppies.
Oh,
Um, you would see tons of stuff about college scholarships and study tips because the Queenager is in college now. You would see stuff about travel
yep,
and about hair care. Like
yep, yep,
that's about it. And oh, inspirational stuff because I love that stuff.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah,
there's no actually no news in my news feed at
yeah.
all.
You
So
know, I love that, and I also think what we know about the brain is that especially for folks those of us who've experienced trauma in our lives, we get into catastrophizing, right? And so it's so
mm,
easy to take this one piece of information and then just go down this rabbit hole of like, and here's why the world is going to end.
mhm.
Uh, and look, the other thing is the media companies prey on bad news because bad news sells, right? So they keep
Right.
you clicking. And so I think, anyway, to your point, being a guardian of what you're consuming and inputting is so important. So,
Absolutely. So if you're thinking about your physical wellness and you're thinking about your mental, then you for those of us who have a belief system of some sort, and most of us have one, then there's your spiritual wellness, right?
mhm,
So how are you taking care of the chakras head to toe?
uh-huh.
How are you taking care of your heart? How are you taking
Mm,
care of that the centering? What is your goalpost
mm.
outside of yourself? Right? And so really being able to take care of that. And then the one we don't talk about in our sector, financial wellness and well-being.
Oh, Tish, girl, let's talk about that. You know, I love talking about money. Let's talk
I
about
know you do.
all
I
the
know you do.
money.
I know you do. I know you do. I know you do. I did not come into this work naively with any sort of like poverty mentality. I didn't think I
Mhm.
was doing anybody a favor. Okay. I did not get a job in the sector I went to school for. And then the job I did get, I didn't want to do because I went into investment banking. And so when I wanted to go into marketing, nobody would hire me. I was too young with too many degrees and not enough experience, blah, 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 blah. And so when I ended up in nonprofit work, it didn't occur to me to not take to ask for less or to accept less. Like, and so what I didn't learn, because I didn't have the conversation, I'm first generation, first to go to college, first to have a professional career in my family, in the way that I do, I didn't know how to manage my money. My
Mm.
dad is a saver. He grew up pretty poor, saves everything. My mom grew up with money. She ain't saved nothing. Okay.
Mhm.
But the money was just going to come tomorrow.
Right.
And you watch, but you're not having those conversations. And so I didn't understand that in order to be well financially, I needed to understand what would need to be true for me to feel safe. And
Mm.
everybody has a floor when it comes to their money. That's like, if my bank account go below that, panic city.
Mhm.
But everybody also has a ceiling. You have more
Mm.
money in your bank account than the ceiling you have in your mind, you're going to spend down.
Right. 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 Right.
And so, what I want to encourage more of us to think about when it comes to our financial wellness is, how do I create the space for me to have the life that is comfortable for me and my family as I run this race?
Yeah.
And not to compare it to others. That it's possible to do financial planning, that it's possible if you have crap money habits, and I had crap money habits, to turn that cruise ship around. And honey, you might backslide a time or two, but that you've got to have your head on when it comes to that. And then last but not least, Rhea.
Oh, wait, sorry, can we just stop at
Oh, go
money for
ahead.
a second? Because
Yeah,
I
yeah.
I have so
Because I
many
know
thoughts
that's your
on this.
jam. Let's go. Let's
I
go.
know that. So I did this course called The Trauma of Money, which was really fantastic, and what I learned was that a lot of these bad money habits, I think we think that financial education and financial literacy will help people. But what I've
Yep.
learned is that a lot of the times when we have quote unquote bad habits, whatever it might be, it's really because it's a trauma response.
Mm-hmm.
Because we get that dopamine hit. So I'm sure, like, people who they ain't got no money, but they go on a shopping spree and you're like,
Mm-hmm.
girl, what are you doing?
What
And
are you
it's
doing right now?
right, because they need that dopamine hit in order
Mm-hmm.
to feel regulated. But after that dopamine hit fades, then they're back into that shame spiral, right? And they can't
Yep.
really dig themselves out because they're not dealing with the deeper issue of like the trauma and the dysregulation that they're experiencing because of what they feel around money. And so we use money as this to your point, escapism, right? Like if I buy this new thing, I'm gonna be happy, right? And
Yep.
maybe you will be happy for that minute, but it's not the long-term happiness. So yes, double clicking on all of the things that you're saying about wellness and taking care of your family.
And for those folks who um know my work and say, Kishshana, oh my gosh, I admire you. You're just like you are. When I meet you in person, you're the same way. I would encourage folks to kick the stool of the pedestal they have put me on, because what you just described is me,
Mm,
not was me.
mm,
And the thing that I knew I had to do differently was to ensure that my child did not inherit the money stories that
mm,
I inherited,
mm,
but I could not prevent the behavior because she is watching what I see.
mm.
And so now she's a freshman in college. She's an only child. She grew up with a single mom. She said to me last week, Rhea, that she never experienced us not having any food. My parents would never allow that. We've never experienced being unhoused, thank God. Never experienced lights cut off. But I did have my car repoed when she was 5.
Mm,
Okay. She remembers that the car was gone one day. She said to me, Mom, it just occurred to me as I was talking to some of my friends that I now know the times we didn't have any money when you started your business. And I said, well, how'd you know that? And she said, well, because those are the weeks that you made spaghetti and used to get upset if I wouldn't eat the leftovers on Thursday and you made it on Sunday. And Rhea, she is not wrong,
right.
but it doesn't stop her from ordering Uber Eats at school on my
Mm,
credit card.
mm-hmm.
And I had to say, ma'am, hello, this is not an ATM. But Rhea, the life that she has lived is whenever she asks me for something, because she doesn't ask for much, mommy provides.
Right.
Mommy makes it happen. It shows up.
Right.
So to your dopamine hit, not only was I getting a dopamine hit from the shopping because it made me feel better in that moment. I got a dopamine hit from making magic happen for my kid.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
I kept chasing it and chasing it and
Yep.
chasing it and chasing it. And then if I didn't have the money, you know what I did? I ate.
Mm. Oh, right. Well, that's another like buffering activity, right?
Woo!
We get
So
a thing to like avoid feeling the thing. We do other things. For me, my drug of choice was working. I like
mm,
truly, people were like, "I'm an
third.
alcoholic." I'm like, no, I actually was. Like, I used work as a way to avoid hard emotions, hard
Yep.
conversations, dealing
Yep.
with my life. And the hard thing about it is I got a pat on the back for being a workaholic. So I was like, I'll
Every
just do more
time.
of this, right? So it's not like being an alcoholic where people look down at you with judgment. It's like if you're a workaholic, it's like, "Oh, good for you. Good job," right?
Yep. Yep.
And I've been doing a lot of work around the ways in which our bodies become addicted to certain emotions. I was
Mm,
addicted to, feeling busy, feeling I mean, my adrenal glands are shot because I was so stressed, but because I was chasing this affirmation of like, "Oh, well, I'm important and I'm busy."
that's right. That's right. The biggest thing the biggest aha moment I had, and the biggest release of the anvil that was on my neck. So I'm a Clifton Strengths coach. I took my Clifton Strengths, and that for those of you who don't know that strength, it used to be called Strength Finder. It's your top 5 strengths. Um, I took it when I was 26,
Mhm.
right after I had my daughter. That was the first time I'd ever heard of it, so I took it then. I'm one of those practitioners who does not believe you need to take it again unless you have a major life event, like
Mhm.
major.
Mhm.
And so I think moving across the country, my child going to college, becoming an empty nester, losing almost 80 pounds, falling in love, like them's is enough to take it
Yeah.
again. Okay. So I took it again, and I was amazed at how my strengths completely shifted. So about
Interesting.
15 years apart. Yep. And it
Huh.
really it doesn't happen all the time. Normally they'll move up and down within your like top 10. Oh, hell
Yeah.
no. Woo is now in my top 10, and it was number 32 when I
I
was
love that you've become more woo.
oh my gosh, right? So here's what I discovered. When you are used to performing in a particular way, when you're used to being in a particular way, part of being able to shift and to grow through that is to admit what excites you about it. And I
Yeah.
realized, oh sugar, I like to shine. Damn it, I like to shine. So for leaders who are thinking about why they won't give their team members more responsibility, but they're like, oh my God, nobody can do better than me. Or for the micromanagers who you're a micromanager, your team is talking about you right now. I want you to take just a little pause and go, do I like to shine?
Kishshana, why are you telling me about myself right now? You know
You don't be.
me.
And
Yeah.
so imagine being out in front. Ria, you're a thought leader. People look to you for advice and information in the how, and we share that similar pathway. Imagine having all your pimples and your boils just waiting to bubble up to the surface.
Yeah.
The fear and the horror that you live with, that people will think you are not worthy because you are used to getting a pat on the back, like you said, for performing.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got to shed all of that.
Well, and I mean, just to add on to that, I also think that there's something so toxic about this, cis white male patriarchy
Mhm.
system that you and I both stepped into, right? And it was like the way to be a leader is to know everything. The way to be a leader is to be bulletproof. The way to be a leader is you have to like cover all the bases, never make a mistake, never let them see you sweat.
That's right.
And guess what? It doesn't work for humans. Like
At
humans
all.
are fallible. Humans make mistakes. Humans don't know what to do or say sometimes. And I think when we create a system where we can't be human, then we become dehumanized.
That's right. That's right. And I felt like a robot,
Yeah.
a shell of myself. And I wasn't being phony, right?
Yeah.
All of the ways in which I was like out for help
Hmm.
showed up in my physical wellness, and it showed up in my financial wellness.
Mm, mm,
So that's
mm.
why I said it. So that's only 4 to 5. So the
Yeah.
fifth
Yeah. What's the fifth one? Sorry. Let's get back on
is
track.
no, it's community wellness.
Oh, yeah. I love that.
Who are your people?
Hmm.
Because you can have watchers and you can have supporters. You want the folks who are going to get in there and they're going to get that support. And you got to ask for support, because
Yeah.
otherwise it's help. And help is the one you just decide what people need, as opposed to support is you respond to what people say they need.
Right.
But do you have the people who are just on the sideline, just watching?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, look at her go.
Mm-hmm.
But do you have supporters? Oh shoot, let me see what I can do to jump in there with her. Let me see if I can call her name in room she's not in. Let me see if I can put her up there. Let me see if I can support her family, because I see that when she wins, other people win. You
Mm-hmm.
got to have that community wellness. So I want folks to take an opportunity to assess who is in your professional community
Mm-hmm.
and how are they helping you to both stay grounded, and how are they helping you to grow? Who's in your social community? How are they helping you to explore the creative, the other sides of yourself that you don't necessarily get to tap into at work? How are they pushing you and pulling you to be able to find some joy in things? And then I want you to look at your personal community. Who's pulling you under?
Mm.
And the way that you can, the easy way to know that is when you spend time with somebody, get off the phone with somebody, see somebody's name come up on a caller ID, the email pop up. If you immediately feel exhausted, or you
Mm-hmm.
take a deep sigh, or you roll your eyes, honey, that is an indication that maybe that's not the community in this season that you need to be in. And so if we do those 5 things,
Mm-hmm.
they don't have to be perfect. But if we keep those 5 things front and center for ourselves, then I believe that that gives us the bounce, the launch pad, to be able to be healthy, empathetic, dialed in, present leaders.
Kishana, as you're talking, it um, made me think of a podcast episode I just listened to with Martha Beck.
Ooh,
And the fact that so many of us are walking around thinking that our bodies are just a fancy container for our brains, right? I think our Western society really puts the value on like the things that you think, right? And the things that you're
yep.
producing as opposed to the thing that you are. And I think so many of us can feel, I'll speak for myself, disconnected from my body, right? I, for a long time, and I'm still working on it, had a hard time accessing emotion because I was like, no, I'm not an emotional being. I am a thinking being, right?
Right.
And often our bodies tell us information faster than our minds can. Like we know, for to your point, we know when we have that feeling of dread when that name pops up. We know if we're involved in activities that give us joy or don't. And so,
Mhm.
how do you recommend that we really start to tap into this intelligence and intuition that are our bodies?
So to me, is the first thing I feel like that was the hardest thing for me to do is to decide, like to admit to myself in my quiet time, Kish, what the are you doing? You are running yourself ragged, twisting yourself into a pretzel to be busy.
Mm,
You don't feel successful. You are leaving a graveyard of unfinished things.
mhm,
You are beginning to overpromise and underdeliver, or kill yourself trying to deliver on what you promised.
mhm.
You are eating at your social capital because you are disappearing, and people do not, they're not used to that. They used to
Right,
you being every darn where. And so they're like, why is she not reliable? She didn't return my phone call. What?
right.
So the first thing we've got to do to me is decide that today is the day you are going to put yourself first. And the
Mm,
thing about many of us putting ourselves first is that we see that as a reactionary, knee jerk, selfish
mm,
action to take. Most
mm.
of us, when we say, I'm gonna put myself first. You notice your shoulders go up and your
Yeah,
voice drops, and you get into this posture of like, to hell with it.
yeah.
If your posture was, I want to help more people, I want to be more discerning about who I help and support,
Mhm,
well, I gotta put myself first.
mhm,
I gotta make sure I'm shored up in order to
mhm.
be able to do so.
Yeah.
Then, what of my 5 pieces of wellness needs the most work? Where do I need to get into triage?
Mm,
What's on life support? What are
mhm.
the resources and supports I need to be able to get that just to level?
Yeah.
And then you got to get yourself to that level. And you might have to cuss some people out who keep pulling at you. No, you might have to give them one of those.
Mhm,
But the first thing to me, decide. The second thing, assess. The third thing, triage. The fourth thing, rest.
Mm,
And when I say rest, I mean pause, right? Because now you done 3 things in a row. Time out,
yeah.
take a step back, and then assess again.
Yeah.
You've been operating this one way for 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 plus years of your life. There is an unrealistic expectation that we're going to magically wake up and just quit all of the foolishness. And no.
Well, friend, I'm going to chime in here with the ways in which psychedelics can be helpful. So I went on an
Yes.
ayahuasca
Okay, so I
journey.
was talking to Vu about this. Oh my God, last fall, this whole thing about ayahuasca and psychedelics and ways in which we can culturally, right? Because this is a
Yeah.
cultural practice of centuries.
Yep.
Get
Yep.
back to ourselves. But go ahead, jump in,
Yeah.
talk to me.
So I was in Costa Rica in August. I went
Yep.
on a 4-day I mean, it was a week, but there were 4 days of ceremony in ayahuasca, and led by shamans. And it literally just, like, rewired my brain. Like, I just let go of so much stuff. I let go of judgment, I let go of the need to be right, I let go of, like, ancestral pain, I let go of resentments, I, like, threw it all up in a bucket, right? So, there's a physical manifestation of, like, you literally are purging this out of your body, and I feel different. So, it's been about 6 months, and I just feel this, like, shift in me where I don't put up with the bullshit. Like, I don't want to do it anymore. And I think it's unfolding still, but I feel so much more centered. I feel like a clean channel of energy and intuition. And um yeah, and I feel like I have gotten clarity about, like, stuff I don't wanna do anymore, right? The performances I don't wanna do, the conversations I don't wanna have, the people I don't wanna work with, it's so clear to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think now that you are the like fifth friend of mine who has mentioned this, I think it's time for me to just be like, okay, I'm like,
Oh,
verified. Let me go. But I don't know if I want to deal with my deep rooted stuff. I might come back. Whoop, honey.
I mean, look, to your point, like, you have to
I'm gonna do it.
decide, right? Like, you have
You
to
have to
decide,
decide.
am I ready? Am I ready to come face to face? And I will tell you, that first night I was scared. I was like, I don't know if I'm ready. And they tell you to, like, speak to the ayahuasca. And I was like, okay, show me who I am. And I was expecting, like, you're a terrible person, all the things, right? Because I think we have this judgment in ourselves.
Mhm,
And the Aya just sort of spoke to me, and it was like, oh no, you are love, and you are a messenger of love. Like,
mhm.
and they're like, no, no, that's it. And I was like, oh, it's so simple, right? And
So,
we put up all of these things to block being messengers of love in our lives. But if we are love and we're messengers of love, then, like, then it's easy.
yep. And I remember one of the things that was so hard for me to lean into is the fact that, I bring a lot of joy. And I kept thinking to myself, how do I bring so much joy to others when I feel so much pain?
Mm,
And I think you can do two things,
hmm.
right? You can both be harboring something and that energy is being reworked. And when it leaves your body, is leaving as a waymaker for somebody else.
Mm,
So what if I took that journey and cleansed out some of the stuff that's causing me pain? Holy crap, Rhea. What kind of joy?
yeah. You would be like a
I
joy
might
bomb. You
be
would just, like,
freaking, I'd be like a
explode into the
boom.
universe.
Right. You'd be like, I just need to get near her.
A
Um,
supernova of joy. I love it.
supernova of joy. Oh, come on, a supernova of joy. I like that.
I just envision lots of glitter happening.
I lit. That's it. Glitter everywhere. Okay. I like it. And feathers and leopard.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I love it. I love it. And cowboy hats. Apparently now Beyonce's
Right.
giving us permission to wear
My head is
cowboy
too
hats.
big, and there's not a cowboy hat that's gonna fit me right now. Get an extra, extra large. My head is really ginormous.
Well, it's all the brains inside, friend.
All the brains, all the brains.
All right, I'm gonna send you information, but yeah, I think the field of psychedelics is really interesting with respect to our mental health because I think we're in a crisis
Yeah.
globally, certainly nationally, and for us to really heal, we literally need, like, I called my ayahuasca thing a hard reboot. I was like, I just need, like, a hard reboot in my life, right?
Mhm.
We got to reset. We got to carve those new neural pathways. We need to grow new brain synapses. We got to just, like, acknowledge that this whole situation that we've created, both in our own lives and in the world, it, it's just not working for us.
It's not working for us. It's just not working for us. And we've got to do differently.
Yep.
And there's no judgment other than look at the situation that we have found ourselves in. Some of us, we would say we didn't necessarily choose it. You looked up one day and said, what the heck? What is
Yep.
going on here?
Yeah. Our lives happen to us,
A life
right?
happened to us. And what I love, it's a period paragraph, what I love about young professionals is that they are not allowing life to happen to them.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
We, for the most part, particularly I'm a Gen Xer, so we just kind of did what we were told, did what was expected.
Mm-hmm.
It was air quotes professional. And if you are a professional of color, Lord, that is loaded. But these young people are saying to hell with all of that,
Mm.
which is making leaders in organizations ridiculously annoyed, upset, and uncomfortable. And I used to think it was like, oh, well, these young people, they don't, they don't understand the rules and they're entitled and obnoxious and blah, blah, blah. And some of that might be true for some people. But what's really, really under that, I think, we are jealous
Yes. Yeah.
of the freedom that these younger professionals, newer professionals coming in, younger people coming in are experiencing. But I want us to reframe that and go, oh my gosh, many of us are parents, caregivers, aunties, godparents, etc. We created the runway
Mm-hmm.
for them to be able to choose. So we
Mm.
should celebrate that and then figure out how we get to shift so that we have a more innovative environment for them to thrive in.
Yeah. Yeah. Chuck Klosterman had this great quote. I'm going to butcher it, but it's a book about the 90s. And he's basically said, like, every generation complains that the generation after them is softer and lazier than they were.
Yep.
But that's right. Like, we should be creating a world in which they don't have to be as hard as we were. And that
Yep.
technology means that they shouldn't have to work as hard as we did. And yet, like, we fault them for that. And yet we created the circumstances for that to be true.
Yep. That's exactly true. And I just want us to stop taking in information to just have, we're like information hoarders,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
but it's preventing us from doing something. So someone's listening to this podcast right now and they've heard us talk about 5-star wellness. They've heard us talk about how to take how to move into a different space. They've heard us talk about how to let go and different tactics that we've tried to do so. They've heard us talk about being able to put ourselves first and why. That's 4 to 5 huge shifts.
Mm-hmm.
And someone is in their car right now, or they are walking right now, and they are stuck because
Mm-hmm.
they don't know which one is the one.
Right.
And I want us just to pick one.
Yep. Just start.
Just start.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just start. Discover yourself. Be okay with discovering yourself. Because if you bring that level of curiosity to yourself, then you're going to bring that level of curiosity to your team, to your organization's mission, to the how the work gets done, to who should be doing the work, because it ain't you,
Mm-hmm.
and everything else in between. And I think that is the gift that we can give ourselves to move out of this place of being stuck, of the deep-seated apathy, of the desire to be able to get under the covers, the heated blanket, the weighted blanket,
Mm-hmm.
hide, or
Yeah.
just to escape to the tropics.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I listen, I still want to escape to the tropics. I still have
Hello,
like my
hello.
hammock in Bali in my
Yes,
mind. But
yes, in my mind, in my mind.
all right. Well, before we sign off, I know you have a book coming out. Do you want to say
Oh my gosh.
something about it, and then we'll make sure to put it
Oh,
in the
absolutely.
info in the show notes. I know it doesn't come out for another couple months, but I want people to get it. Can you pre-order
Yes.
it? Like, people,
Yes,
get
you
this
will be
book.
able
You
to
need
pre-order
this
by the
book.
time, yeah, they'll be able to pre-order it by the time that folks listen to this. So you've heard me talk a lot about being busy. You've heard me talk a lot about performance. And so my first book, published by Wiley, is Busy is a 4-letter word.
I love
How
it.
to achieve more by doing less.
Love it. I love it.
Okay. And this is not going to be platitudes, Rhea, okay, of the thing. This is like tried and true methods, tactics, and sometimes last ditch efforts.
Uh-huh.
and how to put the stuff down
Love it.
and still be successful. And it's going to come out in time for the holidays. So folks will have an opportunity to be able to give it to every darn body in
I
their
know.
family
Give it
and
to everyone
network.
that you know. They probably need it.
Everyone.
Yeah.
But busy is a four-letter word.
I
Okay.
love
We
it.
gonna put it into the F bombs of the world.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Okay. Well, Kish, always so fun to hang out. We'll make sure to put it in the show notes. Folks listening, pre-order because that always helps. But you need it. I need it. The
That's
world
right.
needs it.
Yeah.
Kish,
Everybody.
thank you so much. Always so
Thank
fun
you
to hang
so
out. And I'll
much.
send you information.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. All right, y'all. Be
All
well.
right. Talk to you soon.